This week on Lightfield, Wild Adventures. After filming 2 successful slug gun hunts, host Mark Smith looks to put a 546 grain lead cap on the designated slug gun's western tour by harvesting a trophy pronghorn of his own. It's back to the wide open spaces of northern Wyoming for one final hunt, and one more chance to show the DSG's true versatility. That's this week on Lightfield, Wild Adventures. Welcome to Lightfield Wild Adventures. Come on along as hosts Mark and Brian Smith hunt big game across North America with their designated slug guns. And stick around for the science behind the hunt with ballistics expert Randy Fritz, Lightfield's senior engineer and pioneer of the modern slug gun. It's the hardest hitting, most informative half hour of outdoor television you've ever seen. Lightfield Wild Adventures.
Well, I have to say the last 3 days we've been here in Buffalo, Wyoming, hunting with Rusty Bogers at AJJ Outfitters, and what a phenomenal area. You know, Brian and I get the opportunity to hunt all over the United States, all over the world, and this area is so prolific with game.
Welcome to Lightfield Wild Adventures, the only show on television dedicated to slug guns and slug gun hunting.
We saw not 1 or 2 whitetails, but tons of whitetails. We saw tons of mule deer. We saw way more than tons of antelope.
Having traveled the world to these places, you usually show up, you see some game, sometimes you don't see game. We started seeing game about 50 miles outside of Buffalo, Wyoming, and it didn't stop. I mean, this place is rich in game.
My name is Rusty Bogers. I own and operate AJJ Outfitters out of Buffalo, Wyoming. We're in the north central part of the state, right at the foot of the Bighorn Mountains. We operate on private land and public land. Our private land hunts are for mule deer, whitetail deer, antelope, and buffalo. Our public land hunts are for moose and elk.
Really, it takes a day for that overwhelmed feeling to wear off, to where you can get calmed down to totally focus yourself on what you're here to do and which animal you're here for.
On our last 2 episodes, we've seen 2 exciting slug gun hunts with AJJ Outfitters near Buffalo, Wyoming. This week, host Mark Smith finally picks up his DSG. He's been spotting game in a viewfinder for the past 2 days. Now, it's Mark's turn to put a pronghorn buck in the crosshairs of his designated slug gun.
We saw these antelope up a draw, so literally, we belly crawl up to the top of this little ridge, set up the camera, and I was just gonna film myself. And Nick peeked over the top and he says back to me, he says, they're all bedded down right there. And then I start to crank the camera up to where the lens can just peek over the top of the hill, and I hit record. And I swear that whole group was all bucks. There were some that had lost both horns already. There was some with 1 horn. There was a couple of good ones in that group. And all at once, a real strong crosswind started in on us, 25 mile an hour. Closest one that we wanted to shoot was about 180. And I said, you know, at 180 yards, you're gonna get a little bit of drift, and man, I hate to risk it.
Had the biggest buck at 185 yards, which was just a touch too far with the wind conditions.
And Nick said, they're not going anywhere. Let's climb up to the top of this mountain, and we'll put the sneak on them. We'll come down around the other side of them, and we'll get a nice close shot. So, hold on.
After the break, if you think the slug gun is just for taking whitetails in states that don't allow hunting with high-powered rifles, think again. You won't believe the outcome of Mark's pronghorn hunt. But first, we'll investigate the many reasons why the DSG, or designated slug gun, has to be considered the firearm of choice in most big game hunting situations. When Lightfield Wild Adventures returns. Welcome back. Lightfield Wild Adventures host Mark Smith is hunting pronghorn antelope with his designated slug gun near Buffalo, Wyoming. For years, the 12-gauge slug gun has been viewed as a compromise firearm, a gun of necessity used only in eastern states that disallowed big game hunting with high-powered rifles. No one will ever argue the sheer knockdown power of a solid projectile fired from a 12-gauge bore, but for a variety of reasons, slug guns were subject to severe accuracy limitations, especially outside of 50 yards. Well, thanks in no small part to Randy Fritz and Lightfield Ammunition, the 50-yard gun has grown up. Today's DSG, loaded with the right Lightfield slugs, will provide real-world accuracy and adequate killing power past 150 yards. More than enough range for 80% of all hunting situations.
A saboted slug from Lightfield enters the animal at 3/4 of an inch in diameter. It's already bigger than any rifle can expand to, and it expands upward from there. The range of a typical slug gun with today's modern slugs is in the 150-yard distance. And when you put that into perspective with typical big game hunting where everything is done most times under 80 yards, let alone 150, the shotgun has to be the weapon of choice. You've got 3 times the energy of the 30-06. The wound channel is phenomenal. The proof's in the pudding.
First of all, let's back up to when the boys out at Lightfield showed us exactly what these new slugs could do. Mark and I were so impressed, we said, we need to take these slugs on the road. We need to prove to the rest of America that you can have a DSG, a designated slug gun, and you can go after more than just whitetails. You can go after the pronghorn, you can go after black bears, you can go after any species you can chase with a rifle or a bow and arrow or an inline muzzleloader. You can go after with your designated slug gun equipped with Lightfield slugs.
Despite its range, accuracy, and unparalleled knockdown power, the modern slug gun still has its uninitiated and uninformed skeptics. Well, shooting is believing. That's why, during his pronghorn hunt, Lightfield Wild Adventures host Brian Smith jumped at the chance to let AJJ Outfitters owner Rusty Bogers use his DSG to harvest a nice whitetail buck on film.
Oh, he's mounting that bow. We're stocking up, trying to get a shot out of the antelope. We see these whitetail deer.
They were just totally oblivious to us being there. They didn't care that we were there.
And all of a sudden it was like, oh, I wish I had a tag. And Rusty says, I've got a tag.
I wish I would have had a whitetail tag.
I got a tag.
You do?
I haven't filled my deer tag yet.
You want to shoot him? I know we're going for that antelope. Do you want to shoot him? He's right there.
Well, I don't want to screw up your antelope hunt, but...
No, you won't. You won't screw it up at all.
And I'm like, no way. Then take him out. Here's my gun.
I don't mind whatsoever. You got your tag. Let's do it.
Brian offered me to shoot that whitetail buck with their slug gun, which I've never hunted with a slug gun before, so I had no idea.
I think he's about 75 yards.
70, 75. I've never shot a slug gun though before, Brian.
All right, now listen. These slug guns, these Lightfield slugs, he's 75 yards. Just hold it right on him.
I asked Brian, does it kick? And he says, yes, hold on to it.
Hold the barrel down, don't let the muzzle jump.
Okay, look, there, here he comes. And remember, just hold it right on him. All right, now, Rusty, go ahead whenever you want.
We watched this whitetail buck for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then I put a slug in him, and he went approximately 30 yards and fell over dead.
Look, he's gonna go down.
No.
He's going down. Yeah, buddy. All right, man. All right.
Those slugs work.
Oh man, they do. They do. Let's go check him out.
I was really, really impressed with that slug gun. How effective they are, how accurate they are. That bullet hit exactly where I aimed it, and I have never shot this gun before.
We saw these antelope up a draw, so literally we belly crawl up to the top of this little ridge, set up the camera, and I was just gonna film myself. And Nick peeked over the top and he says back to me, he says, they're all bedded down right there. And then I start to crank the camera up to where the lens can just peek over the top of the hill, and I hit record. And I swear that whole group was all bucks. There were some that had lost both horns already. There was some with one horn. There was a couple of good ones in that group. And all at once, a real strong crosswind started in on us, 25 mile an hour. Closest one that we wanted to shoot was about 180. And I said, you know, at 180 yards, you're gonna get a little bit of drift, and man, I hate to risk it.
Had the biggest buck at 185 yards, which was just a touch too far with the wind conditions.
And Nick said, they're not going anywhere. Let's climb up to the top of this mountain, and we'll put the sneak on them. We'll come down around the other side of them, and we'll get a nice close shot.
Hold on.
Let that mule deer doe bust us.
Yep.
We got up there, and wouldn't you know, we bumped a little mule deer doe that jumped up and snorted her whole way right to those pronghorns. Every one of them jumped up and started up the hill. They're headed right up the side hill. They're headed right up this hill. They don't even see us.
That doe spooked them.
As luck would have it, they were alarmed, but they didn't know why. They didn't know that we were anywhere on the mountain, and they started up the ridge that was above us. And Nick watched what they were doing, and he looked at me and he says, we need to get to the top. There's a big flat up there. Let's just bust up there to the top and let's just see what happens.
So let's go ahead and head up on the top of the ridge, and hopefully
What's
we
over
can catch
this
them on
hill?
top. It's completely flat,
flat,
and there's
okay.
a draw on the other side.
Okay, well, they don't even see us. They're just heading up. As soon as they get out of sight, let's go.
All right.
Okay, go.
All right, let's go.
We made our way up to the top. We get up there, and just like he said, it's just this big, enormous flat up there. And they're following the backbone of that ridge coming up. And then it turned into mass confusion because I suddenly realized I can't film myself in this situation. We're sitting literally in the wide open. So I give Nick the old crash course on hang on to this camera, point it at the one we're going to shoot. This is where the zoom button is. You know what? Zoom in. All right, watch the screen here. Zoom in, zoom out. All right, and then we swivel back and forth, up and down. They're gonna come out from right behind that rock. You good?
Yep.
You a fast learner?
Fast learner.
All right, good man.
He gave me a quick crash course, showing me where the zoom buttons were and record and how to operate everything. And luckily I'm a quick learner.
So as soon as I get the camera framed up and I look in the viewfinder and the first buck is in the viewfinder, I get the gun up.
All right, see the first one right over this rock right here.
Come on, the first one?
No.
No, okay, the second one's a small buck. Third one's the fourth one.
Fourth one, that's the one.
Is he the one?
Yep.
Okay, are you on him?
Whenever you're ready.
Are you on him?
After the break, it's the exciting conclusion to Mark's slug gun pronghorn hunt, and learn how the venerable Lightfield hybrid slug is engineered to shoot with consistent accuracy from any rifled barrel, when Lightfield Wild Adventures returns. This week's range tip is brought to you by Lightfield Ammunition's Same Sight Technology.
What I have here is the Lightfield Hybrid series of slugs. This is the slug we have loaded in the Same Sight package. The Same Sight is this slug loaded at 3 different velocities. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take one of the hybrid Lightfield lights, and we're going to open it up and examine the slug. And voila, there's the hybrid slug. This is our discarding sabot slug. That's the way it comes out of the case. It goes down the barrel. These 2 sabots fly off as soon as the slug leaves the barrel. The hybrid slug is a pure lead slug with 4 keys on it that fits into the grooves in this sabot and mechanically locks it fast, so it has to turn going down the barrel. The Lightfield slug is designed as a pure lead slug. It's a hollow cup, pure lead, with a post wad. This post wad inserts into the slug. When the front edge goes into the rifling, it stops. That post I just showed you continues to push forward, trying to push the center of this slug out. What it does, it acts like a wedge, just like you were splitting firewood. That wedge spreads the slug this way, and it swells up, and this slug fits the barrel of your slug gun. It doesn't matter what size barrel it is, how old it is, The slug changes to the size of the gun it's being shot in. The same sight series uses this exact slug and technology loaded at 3 velocities. The lights are 1,300 feet per second. The white box EXP is 1,450 feet per second, and the 3-inch mag is 1,730. It gives you 3 velocities, the same slug, all the same sight setting. So you effectively have a 100-yard slug, 130 and 160-yard slug in the same sight series.
Welcome back. Lightfield Wild Adventures host Mark Smith is hunting pronghorn antelope with his designated slug gun near Buffalo, Wyoming.
So as soon as I get the camera framed up and I look in the viewfinder and the first buck is in the viewfinder, I get the gun up.
All right, see the first one? Right, see this rock right here. All right. Okay, the first one?
No. Okay, the second one's a small buck. Third one's the fourth one.
Fourth one, that's the one.
Is he the one?
Yep.
Okay, are you on him?
Whenever you're ready.
Are you on him?
Yep. Nice shot.
All
Just
right.
like quick, I said, are you on him? He said yes, pulled the trigger. The rest is history, man. He just went a short distance and piled up. It was an awesome conclusion to an awesome day of hunting.
Nice.
All right. Man, I can't believe it.
Good shot.
Oh, I can't
Good
believe
shot.
Can you believe that?
It worked
let
out
me get
perfect.
get my Lightfield hat on here. Oh man, let's real quick, let's jump in front of the camera and let's show them who was running the camera.
All right.
Folks, that's called teamwork with a hunter and guide. We were sneaking up on these antelope, and we had the perfect setup. The wind was crossing so bad left to right, we thought, you know, maybe we better get a better setup. Nick here says, I think if we go around the top, get behind him, it will have a perfect shot. We get up there, we bump a mule deer doe, runs right into them. They're all bedded there perfect. They're gonna be there all day.
Yeah.
And this mule deer doe runs through him, spooks him. We busted it to the top of this hill. They had no clue we were here. They came right up over this ridge on us. What was that, a 40-yard shot or
40
something?
yards tops.
And I watched it go down, man. All right.
Nice shot.
Hey, let's go have a look at this thing. Oh my goodness.
After the break, the devastation of the hybrid elite slug is examined by the experts as Randy Fritz explains the science behind the hunt. When Lightfield Wild Adventures returns.
Hard work, but I want to tell you.
He's a good buck, I can tell from right here. He's got good curls, good cutters.
Oh, Lightfield does it again, folks.
Congratulations, Mark, on a super hunt. Hey, we sure enjoyed our time in northern Wyoming with AJJ Outfitters. They put us on some great hunting and treated us like family, and we're sure they'd do the same for you. Contact Rusty by phone or through his website at awjoutfitters.com.
That was some hard work, but I want to tell you, well worth it. What a beautiful animal. And he didn't run 40 yards from his shot.
Nope.
Oh,
We'd also like to thank our new friend Tim Peterson at Hawk Creek Taxidermy. Tim came highly recommended from Rusty and did a great job on our pronghorn. Give him a call or look him up at hawkcreektaxidermy.com.
AJJ, man, I'm telling you.
That's a good hunt.
Absolutely awesome.
And now it's time for the science behind the hunt with Randy Fritz.
It wasn't too long ago that the slug gun was pretty much considered an Eastern type gun with a maximum range of 50 to 60 yards. With a designated slug gun and light field ammunition, the accuracy standards are far superior to any of the typical slug gun scenarios. The 3-inch Elite is more than capable of 150-yard shots. Mark was certainly prepared to shoot that far, but being the quality of hunter he is, they managed to get a shot off at 89 yards, and the devastation of the slug on the animal was truly remarkable. The Elite, at 1.25 ounces at 1,730 feet, does carry a TKO factor of 80. That is 2 points lower than a .460 Weatherby Magnum. Looking at the antelope, the thing that struck me is it was shot in the front end on a quartering position. That impact forced the elite to expand almost instantly because it got into some bone. He actually took that quartering shot knowing full well that he had the energy required to, harvest that animal at 89 yards. You're looking upwards of 1,500 pounds of energy. It produced a tremendous wound channel. This animal went about 60 to 70 yards, but there was a blood trail for the whole distance that the animal traveled, approximately 2 feet wide. There were some internal parts that actually came out of the animal. The bottom line is you no longer have to consider the slug gun itself an Eastern gun. The designated slug gun with Lightfield ammunition is capable of taking anything on the North American continent.
For more information on designated slug guns, the TKO factor, or Lightfield same-site accuracy technology, log on to lightfieldslugs.com. Next week on Lightfield, Wild Adventures. From the wide open spaces of northern Wyoming, the boys and their DSGs head for the tangled brush country of South Texas, to the Double C Ranch, where hogs, whitetails, and a few surprises make for challenging slug gun hunting and some fine southern barbecue. We'll see you there next week on Lightfield, Wild Adventures. Closed captioning provided by AJJ Outfitters, first-class hunting and fishing adventures in the beautiful Bighorn Mountains of northern Wyoming.